Hey, Darragh. So here's some feedback on your draft of your portfolio pages. Um, you've made some good progress in three of the areas, and so I'm pleased to see you're getting on with it and you're working on it. But there's a few things in terms of what I think you need to do and what I think you're including, which possibly you shouldn't. I think the first thing to say about what to include, documents like this that are clearly full of words and notes and analysis, and equally lots of text underneath. I'd say no. Basically, the only text which should appear in this document is text which you type into this document. Now, of course, if you want to copy and paste elements of this text because you think you've done some good inquiry into the superhero genre, then you should copy and paste it in. But a screenshot to something I can't read is no use, really. Okay. I mean, I think what's important is, obviously this is about directing. I think you need to be quite clear what that this slide is about directing, isn't about the inquiry about directing, but you've got two videos here about blocking now, and you don't say what blocking is. Equally, what does Christopher Nolan say here, which helps you? That you've watched the video is okay, but what they're really looking for is a sense of you have learned something about that role. Okay. Over here on the next page, this is about stolen. So this is what you've directed. And what we need to see in here is what you're doing as a director. What are you learning about from these videos about blocking, or about what Christopher Nolan says about the nature of directing? You then apply in here. There has to be a kind of link between the inquiry and then down into the action. And you're saying, this is how I wanted to do it. So were you looking particularly at staging? Were you looking particularly at giving your characters notes on set? Were you looking particularly at blocking and working with the cinematographer and actors to block the scene? That's really what we need to see. Okay. I mean, storyboards are very much a planning document. So I don't understand why it's in the reflection, unless I suppose you're saying that it was, the most useful document that you used, and how did it help you direct the sequence? How did it make sure you had enough coverage? How did it give you a way to communicate with the cinematographer? I also think you're going to need to include some other elements about directing. I mean, the problem is you've got the bunker here. Now, the bunker, is that your final piece? Is that the horror piece? And if so, you can't really mention anything about the bunker here. I think, that's got to be a standalone piece. And these things like directing has got to be different. Now, we did do other things on directing. We did the rehearsals. Actually, I suppose that's for the horror sequence. But I'm a little bit concerned that there isn't that flow through the pages. This is what I learned. Here's the resources. This is what I learned. So when I shoot, this is what I did, and this is how I did it, and this is how I engaged with the actor and cinematographer, and those sorts of things. And then this was the outcome, and this is what you think works in that regard. Okay, so moving on. So now these pages are about editing. And again, you've got stuff about Kuleshov effect and how does an editor think and feel. Both, I think, are really good video essays. But again, what have you learned from them? I'm glad you've got Sin City in there, and you wanted to do something with a film noir look, and you wanted to use editing to have that selective color within it, and you want to learn how to do that, and that's fine. But there's nothing here on the Kuleshov effect or how does an editor think and feel. So obviously you've got to work on those bits. Then, of course, within your editing, you've got to be able to talk about, you know, how you edited these sequences together. What I'd like to see in here is I'd like to see your timelines, you know, rather necessarily than just a video. I mean, this doesn't really show me anything, but what does show me is timelines and effects you've applied. That's much more interesting. You know, a little section of the timeline where you're talking about your pace of editing, or you're talking about your use of transitions, or you're talking about your color, you know, or you're talking about when you cut to a match on action, when you cut, you know, you might use a graphic match or an eyeline match. You know, when do you do these, and why do you think these are really kind of important within that? So here I'd like to see more of Premiere and what you're doing in Premiere, and what effects you're applying, and how you're doing that edit, and how you're using the tool. And then obviously we need a bit of a reflection on how far you think you succeeded, as well as how your learning of editing has developed, how editing is really another chance to remake the film in many ways, and that you can restructure the narrative, and that you can change the meaning of a scene by holding longer or cutting shorter, you know. So I mean, there's a few things there which I need in the kind of reflection, and again, you need that timeline. So I've learned about the Kuleshov effect. Kuleshov effect is essential for narrative positioning and creating meaning, you know, because we cut back to the reaction. We go from the shot to the eyeline match, back to the reaction, and that's where kind of meaning is made. You know, how does an editor think or feel is often about timing and rhythm. So what have you learned about timing and rhythm in the edit, and how did you do that in the projects which you're submitting for that? So there's a fair amount of work to do for this, and like I said, a full draft by Friday, please. Okay, we haven't got any time next term to do this at all. Okay, so you're going to need to really crack on with these pages. All right, thanks very much, Darragh.